Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad.
Hi, Jennifer Villarreal here.
Hi, everyone. Rocio Vallejo.
This is the Sales from the Heart Show, the place where business meets heart and soul. And today we have some fun little topics to talk about. We have little hints here on our head. Yes.
Like my ears.
We're going to get into the Christmas spirit here. But before we do that, Rocio has an important announcement for us.
Yes. So here at Planeta X Live, we would like to thank Viva Cafe Bakery, located at 2835 North Central Avenue. They are donating all the bread for our posada on December 23rd. So a special thanks and shout out to them.
Great.
And
All
now
right.
back to our regular programming.
All right. So let's talk about the holidays. Do the holidays make you happy, or do you feel like you're experiencing hell? Yes, for some people, the holidays aren't so cheery and merry. And
I love the holidays.
You do, don't you?
Yeah, I love Christmas. It's my favorite.
Do you have any
Aside
special...
from my birthday.
Oh, of course. Tell everybody when your birthday is so we can get the gifts
June
ready.
16th. Yeah, no, but definitely, I love Christmas. It's my favorite.
Good. So do you have any fun traditions or memories that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So my little family of four, on Christmas morning, we all show up at my grandmother's house. So my family is very close. We all live within a 4-block radius of one another. And when I was younger, we would all spend the night there. But now that our families have grown, we all just show up early in the morning. In my family, something that I started is every year we show up wearing something different. So, last year was something like this. It'll be Christmas hats, so all four of us will show up, or reindeer noses. This year we have, Christmas tree sunglasses that we'll be wearing. So it's cute,
These are cute little ideas that I think anybody can implement, and they don't have to cost a fortune, right?
Oh, my God, I don't spend more than $1.
You get them at the dollar store?
I get them at the dollar store or the dollar section at Target. But I think it's just something fun. The kids really love it, puts us in the spirit. It's those little things.
Sure. And you get to capture those by taking some pictures, video, and
Yeah,
it makes
definitely.
it fun. You remember each year of what you did. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I think with my family, the most, I guess the most memories that I have is sleeping over at my grandparents' house too, with all my cousins, and it was just the fun, the thrill of being around everybody and the gathering. I don't necessarily remember all the gifts that I've received, but I remember the gifts of being there with my family. I think that's the most important thing. And as time goes on, families start having their own families, and we don't necessarily do the sleepovers anymore. But I think it's creating those little moments, like you said,
Oh,
where
definitely.
that's really what it's about. But sometimes what can end up happening is we get lost in the hustle and bustle of shopping, of the little items that we feel that we have to do around this time of year. And so let's break that down a little bit of the importance of unplugging and not getting caught up in, the non-traditional things that become part of the season, whether it's the hype of, again, shopping, maybe feeling obligated to send out cards.
Yes.
Do you do that? Do you send out cards?
Yes, this year I actually didn't. This year I just didn't, I didn't have the time. And it was an added expense that I felt that I could eliminate, and, cut back on. But it was something that I would stress out about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a funny little story, if you don't mind me sharing. But on my profile pic on Facebook is last year's Christmas card picture. And it's a great family pic. Like, you would look at it and you'd be like, oh, what a cute, happy little family. No, that morning was horrible. The kids, I think one kid was crying and one kid was complaining. I was stressed. I was mad. The dog wasn't cooperating because the dog was in the picture. And my husband was just super quiet. But I look at the picture and from the outside, it looks like such a beautiful picture. Everyone looks so happy. And we were all miserable. But I have that as a reminder. I keep that as a reminder. It's actually I actually framed that picture. It's on my dresser in my bedroom, and it's kind of a sad picture for me. Even though we all look happy, and it's a reminder of the person that I was. and the person that I no longer am, and I'm working on no longer being. So, it's all hype. I mean, it is. And something that I just...
This is the picture that you posted recently?
Yeah.
The one where I'm like, finally, I see your dog in the picture, but it was from last year?
It was from last year.
Wow.
And I feel really happy. I feel like I'm much more in tune with what Christmas is about this year than running around being stressed, trying to do everything perfectly,
Right.
So, yeah.
That's really good. I think it's important to remember, too, that our mindset is really important during this time of year. And a lot of people feel maybe poor, but I think there's a difference between being poor versus being broke. And poor is that mindset, right? And I don't think we're poor. When we really look at the blessings, the riches that we have in our life, you might be broke and that's your situation currently, but that can change.
Right.
And so it also helps us to dive into some of the other things that we can do where it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, where you're actually going to create these memories that you'll cherish for a lifetime. Hopefully they'll be filled with more smiles than just in the photo. Right. And so, addressing some of those things where you don't get pulled by the stresses of what we think, Christmas is.
I just know so many Scrooges. There's so many people that are just so grumpy, And I think it's important to remember and to reflect on what's really important.
Right.
So.
And with all fairness, I think sometimes around the holidays there can be some moments where maybe somebody passes in your family.
Yes.
And so it's a reminder of that. And it's hard to feel happy when you're really, your heart is aching inside. Maybe you're disconnected from a family member, whether you're not talking to them or you dread seeing them during the festivities, and you just feel the anger, the resentment, the guilt, the hurt, whatever it is building up. And a lot of that can be surfaced through the holidays, right?
Yeah.
Or feeling the pressure of not being able to buy the gifts for your children, maybe for your wife, your husband, somebody that you love in your life. And again, this is where we can offer some tips on being creative. There's a lot of opportunities out in Chicago or maybe where you live where there's free things to do outside.
Yes.
Right? Whether it's going to the zoo to see the lights and are the animals present when you go there? Because I know you just went.
I did. I went the day after Thanksgiving, and it was a beautiful night. I think the only animal that we actually saw was the lion. Yeah, that was it. Everybody else was,
Well, very symbolic around this time of season as well. So
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, but the lights were great. Definitely check it out.
So let's dive in a little bit to maybe the family drama that can occur and how to not get caught up into that situation. So what would you recommend, Rocio, if you're around a family member that maybe just seems to be draining? How can we not get caught up in that?
Right. I don't know. My experience has been almost just to walk away or leave the room. Because there's always that person, that just isn't having that great of a day or is being, the Scrooge of, the family. And I don't want to be brought down. Mm-hmm. So I'll just maybe if there's a conversation that I find myself in that's going on in the living room and I don't agree with it, or somebody is just being a Debbie Downer, or I just kindly excuse myself and then I'll move to the next room and that's it.
So I think the tip there is not to engage in those heated topics or debates. Another thing that I find that people try to do is justify or prove to the other person what they're doing. So a lot of times around the family season, you might not see them on a consistent basis, but maybe they're following you on Facebook, or maybe they hear through the grapevine that you're in career transition, or maybe you're starting a new business venture. And they just kind of want to pick at that a little bit or project their fears or their opinion on you. Just acknowledge them for asking and saying, things are going the way that they need to go right now, and then change the topic of conversation or, politely excuse yourself.
Right.
I think that's the best way to do it, and not try to prove and try to convince, what you're doing to anybody else.
And I think, definitely be mindful of what you share.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I love sharing. Sometimes I share a little too much, but it's because it's something that I'm really excited about. Or, I saw something, I don't know, whatever it may be. And then there's always that one person that, will project their fear on you. Well, maybe you should be, I don't know, there's a little hesitation in their tone or their word choice. And then it almost instantly will bring me down.
Right.
So definitely be mindful of what you share.
Yeah. And if you don't have somebody to share that with, I would look for a resource, look for a mentor, look for a coach, a good friend. Plug. Look for somebody that you can confide in. But I think if you have 20 people that you're sharing that with, then you lose that sacredness. You lose that special thing that's there. And maybe in reality, you're searching for something else, for approval, for acceptance. To feel maybe more of that loving support, but in
Right.
reality, it's doing the opposite. So that's something to consider. And a lot of times when we have this family drama going on, we bring it into the workplace. We start to put that pressure on ourselves to say, okay, I need to do more. I need to produce more so my family will see how wonderful and how great that I really am. And then, of course, that's going to affect your sales. You're going to come off desperate, and people aren't going to want to do business with you.
Right. This desire to prove yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else regarding family issues, family challenges, things that can come up for you? And, of course, we would like to hear them from you as well. So make sure you keep those messages coming. You can send those via email to info@salesfromtheheart.com. And, of course, to receive all the videos and the updates that are going on over here, make sure to subscribe to Planeta X Live, as well as Sales from the Heart YouTube channel.
Yeah, sounds good. So as far as family, no, I think the only thing that really resonates with me is the attitude. The attitudes, the Debbie Downer, the everyone has their own personality. You have somebody that really likes to nitpick. I can break it down, as to what I see. But I think it just comes down to just the drama and how to remove yourself from it.
Yeah. So maybe incorporate some more fun activities where you can keep the focus on that instead of on you.
Right.
Do you guys do anything with gift exchange? Do you do just the one gift?
So, for us, we celebrate Christmas Eve. Again, we celebrate Christmas Eve at my grandmother's house. So my grandmother, now we all contribute, but usually she used to do all the cooking. But we do just a huge spread. I grew up in a very Italian household. So my grandmother would make, homemade ravioli or gnocchi or some kind of pasta that takes days to make. So we would do that on Christmas Eve, and then we spend the evening playing board games or some kind of game. And we're there late. We're there until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. And then everyone goes home because we all live close. And then we wake up bright and early. We open gifts at our home first. And then we walk over to my grandmother's house and we do, a grab bag with everybody else in the family. So,
Okay.
And then we have breakfast and then we go to my husband's mom's house.
Yeah.
So my mother-in-law. Yeah.
Incorporating those traditions or maybe starting a new one is always fun. I
Right.
love the idea of having little something
It's just something
to
I
show
started.
up with.
We've been doing it for years now. But it's something we started in my family. It's so funny because every year they act surprised to see that we're wearing something different. But I'm they still haven't caught on. But yeah, that's one thing that we do. Another thing that we do every year with my kids and my husband and I is we started doing the Magnificent Mile, the lighting of the Magnificent Mile. We would do that every year, or the lighting of the Christmas tree in Daily Plaza, or going to see the windows in, at Macy's, visiting Santa Claus, things like that,
Sure.
We started doing this Elf on the Shelf. We started doing it when it first came out. But I
You mean when Santa introduced that?
Yeah, when Santa introduced it, yeah. But I have to be different. I don't like doing everything to the T. So I just thought it was kind of odd that Santa sends the same elf to everyone's house. So I went on this little bit of a hunt to find two very different looking elves, and I think mine are actually cuter. But
You mean you put in the request to Santa for
Yes.
him to send a different looking elf?
yeah, different looking
Okay.
elves. But my husband last night, I remember every night that Santa, this is so silly, but I have to find another place to put these things. to put these elves. So where to place them? You have to get really creative.
You mean the elves are looking for a
Yes.
place?
But
And they want to
last-
be really creative to meet the standards of Rocio.
Yeah, last night my husband was like, "What? How many more days of this do we have left?" Because we've had to do. I mean, they've been on the laptop. They've made snow angels with flour. I've had them, we created a little like drive-in scene where our elves were sitting in Barbie's car with Barbie and Ken, because we have a female elf and a male elf, one for Ian and one for Sophia, in front of the TV. Hanging from chandeliers. We've done it all. So I just don't even know what else to do with them anymore. But
Well, good thing
it's
you
been
don't have
exciting.
to do anything with them, that they do it on their own.
Right.
So
Sorry.
I keep trying to give these hints.
For all you adults that still believe in Santa Claus. I still believe in Santa Claus.
yeah, well, you're not acting like it right now.
Well,
so
Santa needs our help. He's only one man, right?
yeah. So, no, I mean, that sounds like a lot of work that these elves have to do.
Yes.
And so you can get creative and do things in other ways, right?
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And really, again, it's about the experience that the kids, your family, that are having together.
Yeah,
right?
or even like those advent calendars. My husband loves them. And it's funny, the things that we do when we're kids, how they become, we really want to incorporate them with our families, and we want our kids to experience the same things. So my husband is like obsessed with these advent calendars, and I don't see the big deal because I never did them. But it was the advent calendar, and then each day has a chocolate. But he came home with them, and he thought they were great, and the kids loved them.
Oh, they did?
Oh my God, yes,
Oh.
they love them. So each day they look forward after dinner to taking out their advent calendar, and then they compare.
At least the chocolate tastes good, because apparently if you get one where the chocolate doesn't taste good, the kids don't like it.
Yeah.
Lesson learned. Go figure.
really?
I won't say where we got it from. But yeah,
Oh, yeah, no, they
it
love-
wasn't that good, and I thought it would be great. But
Yeah, no, they
yeah.
love it. They love it. So yeah, it's fun. I love Christmas. I mean, I grew up as an only child, only grandchild, only niece. So
For how many years?
For 13 years.
Okay.
So I was very, very spoiled. But Christmas was a huge deal in our house. I mean, I would wake up in the morning, and she's great. She has great, quite an imagination. But she would always ask me if I heard Santa Claus's bells, and she'd be like, "You didn't hear his bells? I heard his bells." And I would get so mad. No, I didn't hear his bells. But yeah, I remember one Christmas. I get crazy when they talk about Christmas. It was the best. But I remember one Christmas in particular, like waking up, and I got one of those big plastic playhouses that you could actually like go in. They had like a kitchen, and I had dolls, and it was all set out. Santa Claus only wrapped a couple things. He would just come and everything would be out and open. But I remember walking into the living room and being like, "Oh my God." It was great. Yeah.
So you do remember some of the gifts and the experiences
Yeah,
that
definitely. Yeah.
that you had.
Christmas was the best. And it's changed over the years. Everyone's kind of gotten a little grumpy in our house. So yeah.
Well, I think, it's important to acknowledge that and remember what it is like, and
Right.
to give props to our family for making those moments so special.
Right.
And I would say if you're disconnected from your family, or you don't have a lot of family around, there are other families that are looking to connect, and that you can make a difference with as well. So serving is really important around this time of year.
Yes.
To fill up your heart, and
agree.
remember that it's much more than a season of presence. It's really about being present, right? And
Yeah.
that's really important.
Definitely. And I think so this brings us, I think, into kind of like another thing, another tip here. But one thing that I think, like, my sister and I sometimes still have the bad habit of being on my phone. And my grandmother gets so mad.
Sending out the text messages. Remember back in the day, we would send out the text messages to all our friends and
Yes.
want to just say, Merry Christmas,
Christmas.
or whatever it is. Now we just do it on Facebook. But
Right.
But still, you're right. Being caught up in your phone and not paying attention to the people that are right in front of you, which there's still that element of wanting to connect with people,
Yes.
right? And part of the reason why I think we reach out through our phone is because we're not feeling as connected with the people that are right in front of us. And so take that time to engage and ask questions of your family. Sometimes I feel closer to my friends and people that aren't necessarily in my family because I actually get to know them more.
Right.
You can do the same thing with your family and ask them about them, and not being in an intrusive way or judgmental way, but really sincerely coming from the heart.
Yeah, I think you almost have to be a little strategic sometimes with with your family members. I think we all have like these unspoken or rules. So they're not
What do you
like
mean?
so they're not written down, but they're these things that are considered the norm in our homes. And we all have like this list of rules that we kind of follow. And if you start to divert or change, everyone is automatically like, wait, hold on. You're not upholding our code here. And that creates an issue. So I think being sometimes when you have to be a little strategic with your family when you're introducing these new concepts or these new ways of thinking, or
I mean, is that really the time to do it though around the holidays? Can't you just do it by being who you are?
yeah, but you can, but I think sometimes, I don't know, I've noticed with me, I'm not who I used to be. Like the things that would set me off before don't. Or it's so bad, I'm going to totally put my family out there. But
We can speak in general terms.
okay, that's fine. Whatever. So, but I know it's easier for me just
Okay,
to tell
just
you.
do it.
Yeah.
We keep it real here.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. And it's nothing that I wouldn't say to them anyways. But my aunt is like one of my best friends. She's like my sister. I mean, there are less years between my aunt and I than there are between my sister and I. There are 13 years between my sister and I. And my sister and I we're all super close. So we're very close. But my aunt and I have this horrible habit of picking on my sister because we think that it's funny. And then my sister gets mad and she always calls us mean girls. So it's something that I've been very conscientious about. You know, it's something that I thought was funny and a joke before. But now I totally understand where my sister's coming from. And, you know, sometimes we have a tendency to go a little too far.
So you're being naughty.
Being naughty, definitely. So that's something that I've worked on. So, you know, my aunt, I love her, but Thanksgiving, she had made a comment, you know, or you wanted to like start picking on my sister. And not because it'll be something that, you know, my sister's absolutely beautiful and her hair will look great, but we'll find like, you know, one hair that's out of place. And just to be mean. You're just to, you know, because we think it's funny. It's so mean. But, and my sister will laugh and then eventually she'll get mad. But,
So are you going to continue to do
no,
this?
and that's my point. My aunt started to on Thanksgiving, and I was like, I kind of like her eyeshadow. I love it. She looks great. And I left it at that. And I left my aunt hanging, you know? But
So it throws them off.
it throws them off. But
And then they might actually be like, what are you doing, Rocio? Who are you now?
exactly. So that's what I mean. So then I had to kind of be a little strategic and change the subject or say something funny to kind of, you know, she couldn't think about it too much. But I know I did throw her off. I think she's kind of like, hold on a second. And I was like, no, I'm not going there anymore.
I think that's where, you know, family time can also prompt engaging in gossip.
Yeah.
Talking about other people in the family
Oh, I
after
hate
the
gossip.
holiday party.
Yes.
Maybe somebody had a little too much eggnog and then you're making fun of that person instead of actually thinking, hey, why are they maybe drinking a little too much? Maybe they're hurting inside. Maybe I should reach out to them just to say hello and see how they're doing and engage with them more often, right? Not to necessarily place judgment on them.
And haven't you ever noticed all it takes is like that one person? That one person to kind of like lose it, to change the entire dynamic of, you know, the household. It's not fun sometimes, but we love our families, right?
Yeah.
They're our families. How do we be this? So this is another issue. You know, my husband, for instance, he has 2 weeks off. He's taking 2 weeks off from work. He has vacation time, and I want to then unplug. And I know that he wants to unplug, but how do we remain productive, even though, you know, we're trying to, you know, unplug as much as we can?
Right. I mean, I think you just said that. You want to be unplug, yet you want to remain productive.
And I think sometimes it's difficult.
Right.
You know?
And maybe you don't do both. Maybe you just do one until you feel like you can fill back up and then you can engage again.
Okay.
You know, last year I did take 2 weeks off and I actually went into a little bit of a funk because I felt so creative and I wanted to keep going. And this year, it's completely the opposite. I can't wait to actually unplug for a couple weeks. I need it. I started realizing my body is overdoing it. I'm losing my voice a lot. My voice sounds so scratchy, you know, and just some things that I want to get caught up with at home that for me, is going to make me feel more productive when I actually engage in the business aspect of things, kicking off 2015. So give yourself that little bit of a break. I know I didn't really look at my schedule or the things that I was doing as it being a lot until I shared that with my coach, actually. And yes, the coach also has a coach. And he was just like, "What are you doing?" I mean, that's exhausting just hearing you share with me this list. And I was like, really? This isn't that much. And some of it's time sensitive and I need to get it done. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to do these 2 more things for the rest of the day. And then I'll continue again tomorrow. And instead I realized, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to allow myself to let it go. And some of it tends to work itself out. Some of it you have to prepare ahead of time so you're not in that situation again. And a lot of times we hear this around Christmas. And this goes to not just being productive, but also from feeling the pressure of buying gifts for people, et cetera. You can start now for next year.
Yes.
Every dollar that you bring in should have a name on it. So it's categorized and it's budgeted ahead of time as opposed to being reactive, right? Whether you're using the envelope system, whether you have a simple budgeting tool that I share with my clients. So if you want that tool, feel free to email me at info@salesfromtheheart.com. I'll send you these budgeting forms. It's very simple to do, and we can, guide you through it. But define, what does productive mean for you? Does it mean that you need to rejuvenate so you can actually give when you're out there in the workplace?
Right. Well, I know that I think with just the recent events that have transpired for me, I don't want to unplug completely. I want to keep going. So, I know that my husband definitely wants to unplug. He doesn't want to hear about anything related to work. But kind of balancing that in our household, because I know that he's going to want to do a lot of family stuff. The kids have, those 2 weeks off as well. But I know that there are things that I still want to work on.
Right. So plan that out in your calendar
Yeah.
and, just review that with your husband and say, okay, between the hours of, 3 and 5 o'clock or whatever hours it is on a given day or each day, just say, I want to dedicate that time for me to unplug from the family a little bit and to
Right.
focus on some of the things that I feel are important. And how does that look? So communicate that schedule with each other.
Definitely.
And
It's important.
communicate these needs and expectations. A lot of times we just expect our significant other
Just to
to
know.
know, to be these mind readers.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to clearly communicate that, whether it's with a significant other, even in the workplace. A lot of times we just assume that people will know this. Even your manager, your boss, maybe your employees, communicate that this time of year, you do want to unplug or you do want to stay plugged in. You have to let them know. We can't read your minds.
Yeah. Thanks.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
All right.
great.
I think the other thing overall here is just to remember to humble ourselves, to not allow our pride, our ego to get involved, especially around this time of year, with the pressure that's all around us and from other people. And I think when you don't get caught up in that hype, you realize it's really more about the deeper meaning. It's really about this present and this gift that we're all given. That is priceless, right? And it doesn't matter if you're naughty or nice, you're still unconditionally loved. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about, the experiences that we have with family, friends, and even strangers that go beyond what you can buy in a store. And for me, Jesus isn't the reason for the season. He's actually the reason for every day of my life. And when I embrace that love and put that into my heart, it allows me to be more and more like him from a character standpoint, from our integrity, right? And of course, I still have my moments, especially around family sometimes. But overall, I remember that I'm unconditionally loved, and that's the best gift that I've ever received in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything you want to share about that for you?
No, the only thing is, I think this is, and I've mentioned this before, this is, my spirit, I've grown spiritually, so much, this past year. So this is actually the first Christmas in a really long time that I'm feeling a little different. I remember I have this story, but I have this. I grew up going to Catholic schools, and so when I was a little girl, I mean, I was little. I had to have been no more than like 6 years old. But I remember sitting at my kitchen table crying to my mother because I knew we were celebrating. I knew we were celebrating the birth of Jesus. I mean, that's what we were being taught at school. And I remember thinking, he died for us on the cross. And I remember like visually thinking and seeing him being crucified. And for a 6-year-old, I was just like, oh, I was a little traumatized. And I just remember crying to her because I'm like, here we are celebrating his birth, and knowing that, this is how his life ended was very hard for me. But for me, Christmas, when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, and I think why I love Christmas so much is because of what it meant for me then. And I lost that along the way, and I think that this is the first Christmas where I feel the way I felt when I was that 6-year-old little girl. So it's great. It really is,
I think that's important to acknowledge that was introduced in your life then. And the same with me. It was introduced and I rejected it thereafter and later. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is more of a pagan holiday. Don't people really know? And blah, blah, blah. And I got caught up in all the conspiracy.
Oh, yeah. Or Jesus he wasn't even born in December. He was born in July or, and so it's just all this stuff that
all the minor little things that your brain starts to manipulate. And I think when you understand and have had that experience where you can ask and allow it to show up in your life and that special thing for you, then it doesn't really matter what other people say, what you read in some other conspiracy book or on Facebook or whatever it is. You just know what that true meaning is for you. And I think it's unique and special to each one of us. So again, I'm not here to convince and convert or condemn whatever your beliefs are. Just know that if you do want to experience that in your life, it can absolutely happen. It's not going to be forced upon you, and nor should it be. God doesn't do that. And if somebody else is trying to do that to you over the season or at any point in time, don't let that be a reflection of how everybody is or what that is. That's part of that manipulation. For so long, that was part of my life. And I've shared this before of how my heart was transformed back in September of 2011. And it was a gradual process from the year after that. I didn't realize that I was involved in an environment, whether it was work or my personal life, that kept me, at this tug of war. And it wasn't until I decided to take that leap of faith and embrace these gifts. And, even being laid off the day after Christmas, it was one of the best gifts that I could have received because it allowed me to truly embrace who I really am. And, I think that's what this holiday for me is a reminder of, this birth, being also born again. That's what that means inside. My heart has been transformed. And moving forward into the holidays, especially during maybe some of the tough times with family members or situations, whatever it may be, just staying grounded in that. And, that helps us get through some of these situations and open our heart up to even more people and different circumstances.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah.
Well, I think our producer hopped on Santa's sleigh and is traveling around the world because we've been dragging out this show for about an extra 15 minutes, if you haven't noticed. So I think we should just have our own little dance party or, break it down here because I don't know what else to talk about. I mean, my show was over, I think, 15 minutes ago. Yeah. Was it for you?
It was.
So I guess we'll just have fun with the remaining minutes that we have here.
So I think we should just, I don't know, change. I mean, we can stay on the Christmas topic, but now I think we're in.
Maybe I can just take your ear. It's just play around with you. Maybe I can be mean to you so you can see what it's like.
Now it's just Rocio and Jenny, right?
Yeah. Did you just call me Jenny?
Do you like Jenny?
Oh, yeah? My old friends and family call me Jenny.
Really? Oh, yeah.
They do. That's the first time I've ever heard you say that.
It's the Rocio and Jenny show.
Oh, I feel like a little kid again. See, I never liked the word Jennifer. Because I always felt like I was in trouble. That's what my parents would say when I was in trouble. And then I've learned to redefine that and, not carry that forward.
So I have a question since we're talking about names.
Okay.
Remember playing like house or playing pretend when you were growing up?
Okay.
Did you guys ever have like play names? Like, was there like, did you have like a go-to name? No? Oh my God, we did. So it'd be like, okay, we're going to play house or we're going to play school. What's your name? We always changed our names. No?
What was your name?
Oh, my name was always Amber.
Amber. Wow.
You know why it was Amber? I'm going to tell you because my mother always tells me this story how she was going to name me Amber up until she saw me. And she was like, no, I like the name Rocio. She saw it, read it in a magazine. She couldn't get it out of her head. And it took me a long time to really learn to love my name because everybody always mispronounces it. People,
Yeah, we get emails all the time. Can you tell Rosario?
Yeah, or I mean, it's so funny. I always tell this story, but I remember walking into the office one day and listening to my voicemails or my answering machine, and it was like 6 consecutive messages, and every message they mispronounced my name, and it was always like it was a variation, you know, it was like Garcia, Rosario, and it drives me crazy, and I've embraced it. So I really like Amber because it was just so simple.
So do you have a middle name?
But I don't think I look like an Amber. No.
I don't have a middle name either.
No.
And I always hated the name Jennifer because it was so common, and I was like one of 5 Jennifers in my class, right? And then nobody could pronounce my last name. And so it's Villarreal, but they would always say Villario. I mean, they would misspell it with 1 R instead of 2 R's. That always happens a lot. And but no, Jennifer. It's always been Jenny, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, but, you know, I'm traumatized by not having a middle name because both my children have middle names, but my daughter has 3 names. It's Sophia Mercedes, after my grandmother, and Elise. So Sophia Mercedes Elise Rodriguez. Because I wanted her to have choices. It's so bad. Oh my God.
That's cute. And of course she's not going to like any of them.
No.
I think we should have her on as a guest coming up
love
soon.
it. Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
She's how old?
She's 5. She just turned 5. Yeah.
Aww.
She's quite the character.
She is.
Yeah.
Just wait. I told her to submit her audition tape, so we'll see if we pick her for the show. And she was so excited.
She was so excited. She was like, that was her reaction.
Yeah, no, I'm open to suggestions for maybe helping us come up with a middle name for the show. How about that?
There we go.
Yeah. Send them to info@salesfromtheheart.com. Yeah, so what else?
I don't know. Our producer is probably like, I don't know where, halfway across the world right now. And it's so hot in here.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. It kind of sucks. I wish you guys could talk to us sometimes.
I know. Well, you can. You can call in. The problem is we never start the show on time. So it is a live show, and we would say that we're starting live at 10 a.m., and then Rocio's always late.
Oh, that's such a lie. Don't say that.
All right, fine. We're both late.
It varies. It's so
It
funny.
does.
Yeah.
When you're on time,
Yeah.
I'm late. And
Like, I think today I was an entire, 40 minutes early.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's because you were really late at the last show.
I was very late at the last
and that made
show.
her cranky.
I'm so cranky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the show before that,
You were really late.
yeah, I was like 15 minutes late, and then she had to go on the air by herself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was
it's okay.
interesting.
Nobody's listening at this point. I mean, I don't even listen to the show when it goes on this
Unless
long.
you just think we're kind of cute, you know. Well, no, because
Are you fishing right now for compliments?
not at all.
Like on our first show, somebody called
I
up.
totally did.
Our live caller. We were so excited we have a live caller. And he goes, "Are they single?" I'm like, didn't you just watch what we just... Actually, it was our second show.
Yeah,
And then
so it
we
was the
just said,
first, yeah.
referred to the first show, and we announced our significant others there.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the men in our lives?
We can.
Boring. They're great. Oh my goodness, where is he?
I don't know.
All right, let's bring up some other topics here.
Okay.
Cricket. And you know this won't be edited because we don't edit any of our shows.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, any business questions? That's really where we shine. Where I shine. That's my expertise too, right?
That's where I cry and you shine. And
Right. Unfortunately, Rocio and I have coaching sessions on Tuesdays, which I think we're going to have to reshift that.
Yeah.
Because then we get to Wednesday and we're not coaching on any of those topics. So
Jenny just wants me to cry on every show.
should I just give you the look?
But it's funny because I really don't cry that much. I mean, before we started working together, I think I was and I used to be the person where I would cry, commercials, movies, songs. I was always crying, and then I don't know, I just grew this layer, and it made me really just hard, and I just never cried. Even when I wanted to, I couldn't. The tears would just never come. And now, since working with you, I cry all the time again.
I've recommended acupuncture for her to get
Yes.
the body in alignment.
Well, our massages, we got our massages
Oh,
last
yeah.
week. That was
That's
amazing.
another reason why I think you're in such a
Yes.
good
Oh my
mood
God,
too.
yeah.
You were in so much pain.
I was in so much pain.
And you were denying yourself the gift of massage and chiropractic adjustments.
Yes.
And you have insurance and you weren't utilizing this. And then you found out how wonderful your insurance is to
So
cover some of these
wonderful,
things.
Yes.
So a lot of times, around the holidays, we might feel that extra pressure starting to build up. Usually for women, it's in their upper back, shoulders, neck, and for men, usually in the lower back, which represents money, some things around money. So, do yourself that favor, look into that, whether it's through your insurance or some other recommendations from friends and people in your area of which doctor might be the best fit for you. I have some great ones out in Arlington Heights, also in Mundelein, as well as Chicago. So if you ever need references for that, that's really important. We might clear things out mentally, spiritually, emotionally, but then our body hangs on to them.
My goodness, that's been, I think, the thing for me is I think I've put so much work into controlling what's going on here that I was just all showing up for me in my back and my neck. And I think I told you I found out that I started to get this pain up my neck that was going into my head, which I thought made me a little scared because I've never felt that before. But I found out there was lack of circulation caused by stress, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of my clients are actually prominent men business owners, and I don't always make them cry. I don't make anybody cry. They cry on their own. But even sometimes they have to release, right? Through, it might just be verbally talking about some of these things to somebody that's dedicated there to listen to them and not place a judgment one way or another, come from that neutral perspective, and then providing that solution. And then another aspect is, we create that safe space to release emotion or talk about things or whatever it may be. So this does stay confidential. We won't share anything on air
Right.
unless you want us to. But feel free to message and let us know how we can serve you.
Yeah, I must admit, though, sometimes I do think to myself that you must think that I'm like the biggest crybaby. I'm like, she's probably like, oh my God, girl, come on.
No.
Get it together.
No, not at all. I think part of it is because I don't hang on to it either. So I've learned to release that. But what I found is, especially reflecting back on this year, I've been giving, I've been serving through our volunteer group that we're a part of, and several of my other clients are, as well as friends. It's important to actually fill back up as well. So if you're in a place of service and giving, it's important that you also go through your process. And so I'll be able to share more about that coming up in the new year, since we're taking off a couple weeks here. But we'll have some more insight for you on that,
definitely.
and some really great topics for you moving into 2015. I think doing this show was one of the things that helped me break free from some of the fears that I had regarding video and even just putting my story out there in writing in the book. So breaking free from some of those things. And I bet you might have some too, where it didn't have to be perfect. Right. I just needed to get out there and get it done. And I mean, this is a perfect example of the show, how I think in the beginning we would have freaked out that our producer left us here as he walks back in right now. And, we would have been like, oh my gosh. And we were trying to be all perfect about things. And you know what? It's just be who you are.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't like that, then you probably don't want to work with them anyway.
And too bad. And it's funny because I think this year has really been about me learning to be vulnerable. Because I was great at wearing those different masks, and everything was always great and everything was always perfect. And I had everything under control, and I'm strong and I got it.
And you sure as heck wouldn't have cried on camera like you did a few shows ago.
Never. And even that day I was trying so hard to control it. And I think it was you telling me it's okay to cry. And I was just like, ah! But learning to be vulnerable and reaching that point where, it doesn't matter what other people think. Like, this this is who I am. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I
So-
think you do care. You
I
just
do.
care. You care in a different way
I
now.
care in a different way.
Where
Thank you.
you know
Yes.
what? That show prompted so many messages from people that actually related to you, and they were going through something very similar, and that message spoke to them right in that moment.
Right.
And so, if that means that we're going to impact, a handful of people out there, and the majority of people don't like it, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not for everyone. You're not for everyone, and that's quite all right. But it doesn't mean that we're coming from this, a condescending way. Oh, screw them, or there's always going to be haters out there. I mean, that prompts some resentment. So it's just
Totally.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've noticed that is when I started to share my story with other people, people that I was really close with, I was finding were dealing with a lot of the same issues.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something here.
Yeah.
This is something I need to speak on. And so, like I said, this is me. I've
Yeah.
dealt with this and that, and that's it.
Well, remember, you can actually share your story by just being present and being around your family, especially during the holidays, and allowing them to see that inner glow, that radiance that comes through. And a lot of that is because we have that special place in our heart for our relationship through Jesus Christ. And again, that is really the meaning, not just of the season, but every day. So many blessings to you.
Yeah.
And please feel free to share your stories. And we'll be back in 2015.
Yep. Bye, everyone. Lots of love, lots of happiness.
Lots of goodness.
Lots of
Feliz
happiness.
Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospera.